When the market changes and the information changes, I change. My decision as an investor is to get involved now before it becomes regulated. When it does get regulated, these assets. Well, I look at it very simply, and I've said this many times before, but I'll reiterate it again. I don't consider Bitcoin to be a coin at all. Bitcoin is software. Solana software, Polygon software, Avalanche software. These are software projects. And in the long run, if you believe that this productivity, primarily aimed at financial services, that's what it really is, which is the largest sector globally, is going to bring value, then you have to think about crypto as being the 12th sector of the S&P one day, which is the way I look at it. And so my decision as an investor is to get involved now before it becomes regulated, because my long-term belief is that when it does get regulated, and I'm talking primarily about the U.S. market, there's going to be an inflow, a very large inflow of institutional capital into all of these assets. Now, you can't know with certainty who the winners are going to be, and that's why you need a diversified portfolio. So I've got a very large selection of different projects in my portfolio, about 32 of them. So different tokens, coins, equities of software companies like WonderFi, like BitBuy, like Coinberry, and to me, that's all the infrastructure. I mean, you've got to have compliant platforms if you're ever going to let this be something that the everyday person can use. And so today, in the announcement of the expansion of the number of users in the WonderFi platform with Coinberry, that's very important because it puts us in a premier position in Canada for customer acquisition, customer service, features, and all of the things we can do well as we do it on a compliant basis. And so the way I look at it is you can play two different ways. You can go rogue, and that's a lot of fun, and you might make money. Or you can do it in a compliant way that fits within the banking system, which is what I would prefer, because I think longer term, there's more value there. So WonderFi, Coinberry, BitBuy, these are all compliant platforms, regulated, and we operate under an order from the government. So I consider that a much safer way to play ball. And in the long run, a great investment. Every day I'm trying to put capital to work. I'm an investor. So I'm always trying to find the path of least resistance to make good investments. And in the 2016-2017 timeframe when I made those comments, the regulator, particularly in the US and in Canada for that matter at that time, was extremely non-constructive, if that's the best way to say it. They really didn't want people like myself who are highly regulated, because I have so many investments in traditional financial services companies that were issuing securities and that kind of thing, that it was made clear to me by my own compliance department that this was not something I should do. And I made those comments in the light of how frustrating that was, because I always felt there was tremendous potential, but couldn't participate. And then all of a sudden we started to see the regulatory environment change. And that started actually in Canada. In so many ways, Canada leads with that order that you actually got, Dean. Think about it. You were one of the first to get a dealer broker license with crypto exchange attached to it and regulated under the OSC order, which is amazing. And that just shows you one of the first in the world to get that. And that's when I started getting interesting, because I thought, all right, if the regulator's on board, I can go back to my compliance people and my auditors and say, look, I'd like to participate in this in a traditional way with diversification, many different positions. And it's been a very good outcome. And I think, yes, there's volatility. There's no question about it, but it doesn't mean that there isn't long-term value. It's a nascent industry. It's just starting out. And my path is to choose to work with regulators, to work with governments, to cooperate with them and build a business from the ground up. And I'm certainly an advocate for that, very entrepreneurial. And so when the market changes and the information changes, I change, because I'm, at the end of the day, an investor. And this is a very important sector. And I'm very happy to be part of it, very proud to be part of it. Let's start with the investment premise. The reason you should own some Bitcoin, in my view, and I'm not telling people what to do, I'm telling you what I'm doing, is that I believe at some point Bitcoin will be regulated. And when that happens, it'll get an allocation in sovereign wealth and pension plans of maybe 0.5% to 1%, maybe up to 3%. That would be a traditional mandate. But if you're running a $100 billion mandate, which is a small sovereign fund, that's a lot of money. And so I would like to have a position in Bitcoin prior to that happening, because I think that's what's going to give it much more stability and price appreciation over time. No different than gold, digital asset, if you want to look at it that way. And everybody has their own opinion about what their weighting should be on Bitcoin. I gave a keynote just a couple of weeks ago at Bitcoin 2022 on the Wednesday, which was institutional day. There was 1,500 institutions participating and they own zero crypto, nothing. Now, for them to take the time to fly in from all over the world to listen to speakers talk about this means they're very interested and they anticipate that policy is coming. I take a view that I'm looking for long-term economic value. So on some of the more speculative coins, which are lots of fun, I don't really hold much of those. Bitcoin, Ethereum, Solana, Polygon, Serum, Avalanche, HBAR. These are some of the positions I've got. Helium, if I didn't mention that one already. I mean, these things are projects that have economic long-term value to me. In addition, I own the equities, obviously, of WonderFi, Immutable Holdings, which owns NFT.com. It's also publicly traded in Canada. And I'm a private shareholder along with shareholders in the United Arab Emirates in BitZero that is mining my coin for me on an ethical and green basis with no carbon audits because it's all hydro and nuclear power. So, at the end of the day, I'm trying to take positions here that are very, very diverse and wait and see what happens. I'm very fortunate because a lot of these development teams, I'm able to meet with them personally. I met with the Polygon team, Sandeep in Dubai, and I really liked what he was doing in aggregating transactions and putting them through Ethereum in one transaction instead of hundreds of thousands. It's really reduces gas fees. There's economic value there. But I don't know who's going to win. I'm also a shareholder in FTX and a paid spokesperson for them. So there's that. Big user of USDC. So I have a lot of different positions and I manage them like a portfolio. I try and have diversity and I keep an eye on what's happening. Bitcoin is so volatile is that there's no institutions owning it yet, but that will change over time. And that's the bet you're making when you invest in it today. You have to stomach the volatility, but long term, when institutions can own it, it'll stabilize at hopefully a much higher price. I'm looking forward to those partnerships one day. I'm certainly going to stay in touch with the banking leadership. I'm fortunate to know many of them. And, I do talk to them occasionally. They're just not ready yet. But what'll drive them to this eventuality is their clients. There are many, 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 many people who bank at Canadian banks that would like to put 1 or 2% into cryptocurrencies. And when they keep knocking on that door, we'll be here to open it. I think what happens is the largest economies on earth always end up being the reserve currency because they command most of the trade. And so if the U.S. Regulates a stable coin backed by the US dollar, that will be the first reserve currency because it'll be used as a payment system. I think there's a lot of use case for that. Doesn't take Bitcoin out of the game, but I don't really consider Bitcoin a currency. Everybody has an opinion. I consider it a hard asset. The halving's coming soon. The rarity and the cost of mining will go up. And for those of us that put economic value on what Bitcoin is, I think it appreciates in value. And I don't want to trade my coin. I want to own them for the long term. And so I need something else to use as a payment system. And I'm not the only person who thinks this way. So for a payment system to become ubiquitous or reserve currency, it has to be a payment system. I see that around a stable coin other than Bitcoin, although there's a use case for both.